Hey guys, so today I'm gonna be doing a reaction video to my man Vivek Ramaswamy. He did an interview with the most insufferable man in the liberal media, Al Sharpton. Like that man, I swear to God, that man, he is just anyway, let's check this out. This is gonna be good.
Politics Nation. According to a brand new Wall Street Journal poll out today that was conducted entirely after the first Republican presidential debate and mostly after the release of Donald Trump's Fulton County mugshot, the former president holds a whopping 46-point lead over Florida Governor Ron DeSantis among GOP primary voters, 59 to 13%. My next guest is also somewhere on that list, but with much less support, with 5%. Joining me now is 2024 presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. First of all, thank you for being here and engaging us in this conversation. I want to start with comments you made repeatedly now, referring to Massachusetts Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley and author Ibram Kendi as, quote, grand wizards of the modern KKK. Now, I understand you differ with both of them politically and probably with me. But as a graduate of Harvard and Yale universities, I believe you must be aware the Ku Klux Klan is not a political party. It's a terrorist organization. Historians view the Klan as the driving force behind lynchings of blacks in the American South, more than 4,000 people murdered from 1877 to 1950. And the group is linked to numerous other acts of racial violence continuing through the civil rights movement to the present day. You're running to be the leader of the free world, so your choice of words matter. Have you taken any time to reflect upon the possibility that comparing your political rivals to murderous terrorists might put their lives in danger at a time when hate crimes are on the rise? Or do you just don't care?
So,
Hate crimes on the
Reverend
rise.
Sharpton, I don't look at the world through political parties. Frankly, it's good to see it's been 20 years since we last spoke. And part of the reason that I came to that event 20 years ago with you is that you were a political outsider just like I am in my own party. But let me talk about the issue you're actually asking about, which is that, you know, what's toxic about that old worldview of organizations like the KKK, which have been a god-awful stain on our national history, is that they say that your skin color determines what you're allowed to say, what you're allowed to think. To say you have to shut up, sit down, and do as you're told because you're black or brown skinned. Well, you know what Ayanna Pressley said much more recently is that we don't want any more black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't want any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. And so, yes, I do think there are echoes of a historical ugly racism in this country now showing up in new clothing.
To say we
and
don't
what I
want
want to lead us to as the next president
just a second.
is a
To say
united
that we
nation
do not want
where we
black
don't actually
voices,
judge each other on the
to
color of our
say
skin.
that is not going with sheets and burning crosses and lynching people. If she said something you disagree with,
the point I'm making,
you cannot equate Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan with somebody saying something that you think is a little controversial or a little too far. Some of our relatives were terrorized by the Ku Klux Klan. I'm trying to get you to understand the pain.
I know you're intellectually
of that.
honest. I know you're an intellectually honest guy, and so I will remind you that Hakeem Jeffries drew analogies between Donald Trump and the Ku Klux Klan, and I don't think you had him on pressing him in the same way. So we're drawing analogies here to make a point.
He did not call Donald Trump the grand dragon of the KKK. He did not call Donald Trump an officer of the modern KKK. Let's not change what was said.
So, Reverend Sharpton, though, I'm calling out a double standard and saying that certain people can use certain analogies to make a point. Well, I'm using an analogy to make a point. And the point I'm making is we should stop seeing each other on the basis of our skin color. It was god-awful when the KKK did it, But you know what? We have to learn a lesson in the present that we're creating more racial division in this country.
But you
when
cannot
you say if
do
you
it
have black
being
skin, you can only
insensitive.
think one thing.
You cannot do it being insensitive to our feeling. Like that's like calling somebody of any kind of group that had a group that were terrorizing.
So I agree with you. We need sensitivity.
So I think we need to be very careful about that. And I wanted to raise that with you directly. Let me go to my next point.
And I respect that you're willing to have an open conversation.
Campaign,
That's
but I
what we
want
need
to
in this
ask you a
country.
couple of questions. And one thing, you know, if you talked, you mentioned we talked 20 years ago, and I'm going to get to that, but you should have known 20 years ago. You're not going to out-talk me, so let me ask my question. I'll let you talk, then I'll go back to the next
Goes both
point.
ways, yeah.
All right. You've spoken out against affirmative action and diversity programs, even though it is a reporting in Axios and elsewhere have produced evidence. Your own former company has been involved in various DEI and ESG initiatives. Your own companies, DEI, diversity. I would hope we can agree that historically many communities of color have not enjoyed the same socio-economic benefits as white Americans. And many of those disparities persist to this day. What specifically would you do as president to address that problem, keeping in mind your own company got diversity business?
Yeah, so I want to be very clear about that. After I stepped down as CEO, precisely to speak my mind freely, the company that I founded went the direction of most companies in corporate America. And I disagree with that decision. But you're asking a more important question about what are we going to do to ensure equality of opportunity in this country? You're right. We have been an imperfect nation. I've always said it, but we aspire towards perfection. How do we go that next step? I want to make sure kids aren't trapped in the ghetto of a zip code that they happen to be born in. To the contrary, I think every parent deserves to have the opportunity to send their kids to the best possible school. That's why I favor radical school choice in this country. I think it's a mystery, Reverend Sharpton. The very people who will wax eloquent about systemic racism are also the ones who are opposed to educational mobility. That's why I've said shut down the U.S. Department of Education. Use that $80 billion, put it in the hands of parents so they can actually send their kids to that best possible school they can. That's the actual civil rights issue of our time. So I stand for solutions. I stand for equality of opportunity, but I reject race-based quota systems.
I did not go to Harvard, but I know when a question is not answered. I did not ask you about education. I asked you about diversity in business. I asked you about a company you headed getting DEI.
He answered it.
We deal
so here's what I'm against.
Wait a minute. Let me ask the question again.
He answered it.
How do we deal with
Go for it.
The economic disparity in businesses of color and people of color in the economic arena? You ran the school choice, good duck, but wrong show. Deal with the economic. You're a businessman.
It's actually related. You know, I know you're smarter than this to know that education leads to economic prosperity. So there's no Band-Aid fix.
But after you're educated, we have educated people that can't get contracts. We have educated people that have no problem with being educated that can't get contracts. How do you deal with the inequality in how they do business in this country, how they get jobs? That's where the DEI programs come from.
So I understand where they come from. I'm against it because it causes us to see one another on the basis of our skin color. I can tell you from personal experience, I have hired, both in businesses I've founded, even in this campaign, people who are Black executives who have, I think, been unfairly judged. I put them in those positions because of merit. Other people at the companies and otherwise have seen those people as getting that position because of racial quota systems. All right. That is wrong, no matter whether you're Black or white.
Many of them
we
will
need to go back to colorblind meritocracy. That's what we need in this country. That's how I've led the companies I've built. That's how I will lead this country. Colorblind meritocracy. That's what we need.
Were barred and had the merit. But since you talked about experience, I need to show you this tape.
Yeah.
Back in 2003, when I ran for president and you were there to ask me a question at a forum I was doing at Harvard University. So 20 years later, now my turn to ask.
Yeah.
Let me first play you the tape of you and I 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Good. Let's get to my question here. Go ahead.
Reverend Sharpton, hello. I'm Vivek, and I want to ask you, last week on the show we had Senator Kerry, and this week and the week before we had Senator Edwards. And my question for you is, of all the Democratic candidates out there, why should I vote for the one with the least political experience?
Well, you shouldn't, because I have the most political experience. I got involved in the political movement when I was 12 years old. And I've been involved in social policy for the last 30 years. So don't confuse people that have a job with political experience. So 20 years later, now my turn to ask you, of all the Republican candidates out there, why should someone vote for you, the one with the least political experience? And I might add, you've never held office. You've only voted twice.
That's correct.
In the last few elections. You don't even vote regularly.
Yes.
And you support Donald Trump, who never held office until he was president. Well, you putting a different standard on me, but I won't even make the racial application there. Why should we vote for you?
Listen, at the age of 18, I think you persuaded me on that one, that political experience is not the same as holding office. To tell you the truth, the reason I came out there and I was intrigued.
Can I put out right-wing press that Sharpton converted a young, well, I don't want to take credit for
to believe outside of political experience? I'm going to tell you the truth. One of the things, I'll even give you one more for you, okay? You were the only anti-war candidate back then. I was against the Iraq war. As I recall, you were the only anti-war candidate in either party. Well, guess what? Tables turn now. I'm the only true anti-war candidate in either political party now when it comes to Ukraine. I believe in America First policies. I think this Ukraine war does not advance American interests. I was the only person with the courage to say that on the Republican debate stage last week. The real war I would take on is the war against the administrative state, the shadow government here at home. I think the people who we elect to run the government, once again, ought to be the people who actually run the government, not the cancerous bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. I'll have a 75% headcount reduction for all of the people who weren't elected in Washington, D.C. So this is a very different vision than you hear amongst traditional Democrats for sure, but even amongst traditional Republicans. I want to shut down the administrative state. I want to declare independence from China. I want to grow our economy by drilling and fracking and embracing energy. And I want to revive national pride in this country. That's not a Republican idea or a Democratic vision. It is a pro-American vision. That's what I stand for. It's why I'm in this race.
Oh, we gotta leave it there. Every time I hear Vivek talk, like there's just something about him that is just captivating. Now, there is a possibility. This guy is full of shit. Like there's politicians. Well, I wouldn't consider him a politician, but there's a possibility that he's full of shit. Like a possibility, but I like him. Like if I know there was a chance, let's say if Donald Trump, if the Democrats kind of like succeed in getting rid of him, putting him in jail or whatever it is, and it's between Vivek and what's his face, DeSantis. Now, I used to like DeSantis, man, but the guy just fell off a cliff. I don't know what happened to him. I don't mean in his polls. I'm just talking about the things he was saying, what made him popular, I mean, this guy was literally neck and neck with Trump until a few months ago. This is crazy. And he's like a totally different man now. When I hear him talk, I'm like, bro, what are you saying? If he's down to between DeSantis and Vivek, I'm going with Vivek. Because he's an outsider and he's not, I don't know, maybe DeSantis, ever since he started getting into, ever since he declared, he's running for presidency, he became more of a politician, like more of a bureaucrat. Like he stopped saying certain things, started saying certain things, dodging certain questions. It's just, I mean, there's just something dodgy about DeSantis now. Like I can't really put my finger on it, but there's just something dodgy about him right now. But anyway, yeah, that was a good interview. I like it. I like Vivek. I like the way I thought he was gonna fumble a little bit here, but every time I watch this guy, man, he's always impressing me. But anyway, so if you like that video, please hit that like button, hit the share button, leave your comments down below. I always love to read them. And if you may, please subscribe. You have a good night.